It's emotional. Yep, 1,000%. Life, art, right? Here's the thing. Expressive, mixed media, intuitive, abstract art. We're trying to dive into that heart of the matter and use our emotionality and maybe like offset the intuition and the technical. But ultimately, we're wanting to open to the places and spaces inside of us. And this can happen in life too, but what happens is the resistance and fear, right? That's the other studio. No, my first raw studio sessions. This is my second one, and I do have the all-seeing eye. You gotta have a fun coffee cup, rule number 1, I guess. But, someone once said to me, you're crying because you care. Yeah, I am crying because I care. It's true. Usually emotion is something that happens, right, in different kinds of contexts. You either are hurt, or, elated, and like there's that emotional happy release, and then there's that emotional sad release, and then sometimes we can dwell too much in that emotionality, and it maybe spirals out. And that has happened to me in the past, in my early 20s and stuff. But that's like when my life was super tumultuous and really upside down, like the whole time, all the time. So I was constantly in this state of stress and panic, and I couldn't regulate my system, so we're afraid to maybe enter into relationship with the emotion, and definitely in life and definitely with others, because it's vulnerable, and we have to let down our masks and kind of open the doors to what it really is. And that's scary. And then depending on how much we're hiding, that's also gonna interfere, right? Because if I say this whole side, and maybe you never will, because it's hard to admit things, but you could at least admit them to yourself. I think that's where I'm going here. And kind of work that out within yourself, because really in the end all you have is yourself. And if you need to move forward and you don't want to stay stuck and wallowed in that fear, and lower whatever, you kind of have to face the internal stuff. But that's life, and that's a whole nother story. But I want to talk about art and the emotionality of it, and how we can use all of the sides, not just the fun and light and whatever colorful side, but those harder emotions, and feelings, right? Because there's a feeling state and an emotion, and there's many feelings, I would say, more so than even confusion or something, or I don't know, euphoria. There's just so many colorful words and descriptors for this idea of what we're really entering into in an artwork. And that emotion is okay to be there. Actually, as an intuitive, abstract, expressive, mixed media painter, I want the emotion, and I relish in it. So yeah, it's gonna be emotional every day, but I'm in tune with all of that. Where can I go to with it, and how can I use it, and how can I investigate and uncover what's lying deeper within the self, and then bring it out into the artwork. And I guess if you're not making art, you can do that in different ways. It's just about choosing to show up to the moment and really looking at what's in the way, right? But what the thing about art making is, you can really take that emotion and create that color, create that mark, create that line, and maybe you want to speak to it in the future or now, or maybe you never want to. That's perfectly fine, right? I'm interested in like speaking to it because it's like highly interesting to me, and I don't hear many people talk about it in this way. So I kind of just want to be that other voice and insight into like how can we open up to more of the emotionality and move it into the work. And how can we address the fears and blocks and resistances that are really like kind of needling us and underpinning in order to like bring the stuff out, right? So usually there's something like in the way, or we've only gone so far down, and then we hit that moment where it's like, no, that's the resistance. And then there's like a pushback, but maybe like ultimately what we really want to be doing is like, ooh, digging through that concrete and like seeing what's under there. But sometimes that's scary, right? So we can really get the right assistance in order to like discover these things and take ourselves to those places if we desire to, if we want to. So it's all about freeing ourselves up in the process. And it could be like it could take some time. So you can give yourself time into this understanding. There's a lot going on in this thought. I've seen over the years, like, and noticed all these differences of where I was like blocked and what I was like really afraid of, and how I was really trying to move into this place in my work, but there was always this like weird disconnect. But it came with like time of really taking time out to look and work on my own, just my own, and not think about what anyone else was saying. So sometimes giving yourself that gift of just like the exploration and experimentation, like on your own, and like you develop more of a direct relationship to you, the work, and yourself. Of course, we all need help from time to time, and being alone isn't always the most ideal, and sometimes we do go farther in a group, but like when you're really trying to like dial into yourself, sometimes it's just best to shut everything out, but then that can be a dangerous place to dwell into, especially if you're used to doing that. I'm talking from experience. So it's like then having these awarenesses to know like, okay, I done that too much now, and that's enough. And then on the flip side, then going back to learning, or going back and finding the teacher or coach or whatever you need to move you forward. So it's like all these little awarenesses and paying attention to the sides, but it's really okay to be emotional in the work. And I think when we're talking about freedom and finding that and like loosening up, it's about paying attention to the energy and the emotion and the body, like it's a full body experience. Where are we like holding when we like, I'll just fake demonstrate. When we like go to make the mark, I'm doing that. But like, so there could be like a rising, and then you maybe even can feel it going. Sometimes you can feel where it's stuck if you're paying attention. It like sometimes it's like here in this. It just depends. So that's like an awarenesses thing. You're paying attention to the body. You're like having a mark, and then you have to like also maybe do the technicals. So there's a lot of nuances and a lot of things going on when we're like entering into this space. And then if you're dragging all that stuff with you, that might interfere at times, and it's very likely going to happen because as much as we like try to shut off the history, it's still there, right? And when we go to create, we kind of are opening up all these capacities and channels within ourselves that sometimes are beyond ourselves, but also, are present to this day. And then that's when the awareness rises. And the resistance comes when we don't want to look at what it is, or we don't want to like admit the desire. And now I'm just speaking from my personal experience and how I see it, so this isn't like a one and only conversation, but it's my channel and it's my art and it's my life, so this is how I see it. I just want to put a preference, like a disclaimer there, because it's not the only way. It's just one way to consider all of these things, and there's many ways. And we're all entitled to that voice and that expression and the way we see it. And if we want to talk about it or if we don't, it's all up to you and me, the individual. How do we show up, and how do we like claim these things or not claim them, or want to have the desire to speak onto them and then like do it, right? And it's the same thing about showing up to this artwork. How do we really take ourselves into that place? It's been over showing up almost daily over years, so it's pretty much daily for me, even if it's something small. But it's never perfect. This week I was really, really sick, and I did not do anything that day because I just couldn't stand up. But but it is about like priming yourself and giving yourself the time and like allowing yourself to move into the process, and being emotional. Like sometimes we're not used to it because we're told to shut down, or we like to shut down because it's easier sometimes than to actually have the conversation or to actually open up to the moment. But in this kind of work, what I love so much is that we can really open a lot of the places and spaces within us if we're just willing to like show up and look at it in like in an honest way for what it is. And we don't have to like turn anything away. Over time, I saw my grief on the canvas was really happy, and like sometimes when I was really angry it was happy, and sometimes my happiness looked like anger because I was showing up in all these like emotional states, and I started to have this awareness that it's never really what it seems. So if you can get curious and just see what is arising, and sometimes usually we shut off, right? We're like, oh, I can't do this because I'm feeling this way. But it's almost like if you allow yourself the opportunity to show up to the moment and how you're feeling, you might have a new experience altogether. And I guarantee you, if you do it enough over time, you're going to see something for yourself. But only you can do it. I can like say it all I want, but you really have to be the one to take yourself there. So this is just, all these videos are just like encouragements to like show up to your practice, right? And reminders. And maybe there's a new nugget of something in there because I'm talking about it from a different point and place. But ultimately, it's always up to us, right, to decide what we're going to do in our life, whether we're going to run away or whether we're going to face it. And, you can only do that for yourself. You can only make the choice for yourself, and then you can enter into relationship with others or your work from those points, knowing all of that for yourself. And, it just becomes more well-rounded in the process. And, I don't know. I just want you to get curious about the other emotions and, like, realize that there's a transformation that happens when you go into this work, and, there really is an experience that can start to develop and come from, taking yourself places, and like opening up to that experimentation and investigation, and some of the things that maybe seem taboo to you, because that's going to be different for everyone too. That idea of what, because risk is also different, right? What's risky to me might not be risky to you, which I always found that strange, but it's true. So you got to like determine all these awarenesses and things for yourself, and like kind of take what I'm saying and throw out what doesn't work, and keep what is interesting. And that's all we're really doing when we're learning from someone else. We're just taking what we love and then making a compilation of that, but then trying to like find our own voice in the process. And that's really challenging. And it is a process, and it's like a lifetime discovery, right? All of these things. So if you're struggling, know that we all struggle, and it's just about showing up to the moment again, and staying with it. And there'll be hard days, but what happens is you show up in the hard day and you do something, and then you're like, oh, this is interesting. And then maybe you show up again and you're like, oh, what is that? And then it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And before you know it, you're somewhere else entirely. Anyway, this is my like 5 a.m. stripped down studio thought. Yeah, I wake up this way. I am this way, and I want to own that. And I encourage you to own, what is important to you, what's passionate for you, not just in your art, but in your life, and to really express that in your way. And whatever you need to do to work through those fears and resistances, well, there's ways to do it. So, we have hope here. And that's what it's all about, is just that, encouragement and support, and, an honest and open way, to realize like we are all in this together, ultimately. And how do you want to show up though is your choice. Anyway, thank you for being here, and I hope you found some insight in this or a stripped down studio session. I'm really just speaking into like things that are important to me, things that I think about all the time, things that have permeated my life and colored my world, and still do. And it's just kind of expanding more and more now as I step into talking about it, and I could talk about it all day, so I'm gonna press stop.